Good evening, dear listener, and welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're stepping into the shadowy, plague-ridden streets of Venice in 1348, right in the heart of the Black Death. Imagine being a modern-day merchant, dreaming of striking it rich in this bustling trade city, only to find out it's a lot deadlier than you thought. We'll follow our brave but slightly clueless hero as he tries and hilariously fails to sell his wares in a city gripped by fear and disease. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this medieval misadventure, settle in, dim the lights, and perhaps turn on a fan for that soft hum. If you enjoy this journey, do give a like, subscribe, and whisper in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now let's don our cloaks and drift into the past, carefully, lest we catch the plague. 'Tis a gloomy morning in 1348, and you're Luca, a modern-day dreamer who somehow found himself in Venice during the Black Death, determined to become a wealthy merchant. You're standing on a cobblestone street, the canals of Venice shimmering nearby, clutching a bundle of fine silk you're sure will make you rich. "I'll be the greatest merchant Venice has ever seen," you declare, your voice brimming with misplaced confidence, your eyes wide with hope as you adjust your wide-brimmed hat, dreaming of gold and glory. But the city around you is far from the bustling trade hub you imagined. It's a city in panic. Townspeople rush past, their faces pale with fear, some wearing eerie beak-like masks to ward off the plague, muttering, "The Black Death, flee for your lives." You notice a pile of dead rats in the street, and the air smells of decay and despair. "Surely they'll still want silk, right?" you muse, ignoring the chaos as you set up your stall near the canal. But as the church bells toll ominously in the distance, you start to wonder if selling silk in a plague-ridden city might be a tad trickier than you thought. You've set up your stall near the Rialto Bridge, proudly displaying your silk, ready to make your fortune. "Finest silk in Venice, fit for a doge," you call out, your voice echoing with carved speech lines, your eyes wide with hope. But the few townspeople brave enough to be out stop and stare. "Not at your silk, but at you, plague bringer," one shouts, pointing at you with a carved, angry face. "Your silk's cursed," another cries, and before you can explain, they start throwing rotten fish at you. Splat, splat. The fish, carved with angular scales, land on your silk, staining it with a foul stench. You gasp, your eyes wide, mouth open in shock, as you try to dodge the barrage. "My silk, it's clean, I swear." But the townspeople aren't taking any chances. They've seen too many die from the plague, and they blame merchants like you for spreading it with their goods. A plague doctor in a carved beak mask watches from the shadows, his stern expression carved in reddish-brown, muttering, "Burn the silk, it's tainted." You realize that in 1348 Venice, no one's buying luxury goods. They're too busy trying to survive. Your first sale attempt has gone from riches to rotten fish in record time. After your disastrous sale attempt, the city guards decide you're a risk. They don't care about your silk. They're worried about the plague. "To the quarantine boat with you," one barks, and before you can protest, you're dragged to a small, creaky boat in the Venice lagoon, a floating prison for suspected plague carriers. "I'm a merchant, not a plague spreader," you cry, your eyes wide, mouth downturned in frustration, as you're shoved onto the boat with a few other unlucky souls. The boat is a nightmare. Carved rats scurry across the deck. The air smells of rot, and the guards on shore watch with stern faces, their carved spears glinting in the sun. You're stuck here for 40 days. Venice's strict quarantine rules mean no one gets in or out until they're sure you're not infected. 40 days? You groan, realizing you can't sell silk from a quarantine boat, and your dreams of wealth are sinking faster than this leaky vessel. In 1348 Venice, trade takes a back seat to survival, and you're learning that the hard way. After 40 days, you're finally released from the quarantine boat. No plague symptoms, but also no sales. You return to Venice, determined to try again, clutching your now slightly rat-nibbled silk. Surely they'll buy now, you mutter, setting up your stall once more. But as you call out to passers-by, a plague doctor approaches, his carved beak mask casting an eerie shadow, a torch in his hand blazing with carved flames. "Burn the silk," he commands, his voice booming with carved speech lines, pointing at your goods with the torch. It brings the plague. You gasp, your eyes wide, mouth open in terror, as you stammer. But it's fine silk, not plague-ridden. The doctor doesn't care. Venice's authorities are burning anything that might carry the disease. And your silk is next on the list. You watch in horror as a pile of goods nearby burns, carved flames rising in reddish-brown, realizing that in a city gripped by plague, your wares are more likely to be fuel for the fire than a source of profit. With your silk spared from the flames, barely, you head to the market, hoping to find buyers. But the once bustling Rialto market is a ghost town, empty stalls, shuttered shops, and a lone crow perched on a beam, its carved beak glinting ominously. "Where is everyone?" you mutter, your eyes half closed, mouth downturned in disappointment, as you clutch your silk. The only merchant foolish enough to be here. The Black Death has decimated Venice. Half the city's population is dead or dying, and those who remain are too scared to leave their homes. Trade has ground to a halt. No one's buying silk when they're burning their own clothes to stop the plague. You sit on your stall, the silence broken only by the distant toll of church bells, realizing that in 1348, being a merchant in Venice isn't just hard, it's impossible. Your dreams of wealth are as empty as the market around you. Desperate to sell something, you decide to try selling door to door. Surely someone wants silk, even in a plague. You knock on a door, calling out, "Fine silk for sale, perfect for, staying safe?" But the door flies open, and a group of townspeople glares at you, their carved faces twisted with anger. "He's a spy," one shouts, pointing at you with a carved pitchfork. "He's spreading the plague for the enemy," another cries, and before you can explain, they surround you, their pitchforks gleaming ominously. You stammer, your eyes wide, mouth open in panic. "I'm just a merchant. I don't even know what a spy is." But in 1348 Venice, paranoia runs rampant. Everyone's a suspect, especially outsiders like you. A Venetian guard steps forward, his carved spear pointed at your chest. "To the dungeon with you." You're dragged away, realizing that being a merchant in a city gripped by fear means you're more likely to be accused of treason than to make a sale. Your silk remains unsold, and your freedom is now at stake. Locked in a dank dungeon beneath the Doge's palace, you're starting to think your merchant dreams were a terrible idea. "I just wanted to sell silk," you mutter, your eyes wide, mouth downturned, as you sit on the cold stone floor, surrounded by carved rats. But as night falls, you spot a loose bar on the window, your chance to escape. You tie your cloak into a makeshift rope, climb up, and squeeze through the bars with a carved creak, your face lighting up with relief, eyes wide, mouth slightly smiling. You slide down to the canal below, but a guard spots you, his carved spear glinting as he shouts, "Stop, spy!" You run through the streets of Venice, dodging pitchforks and angry townspeople. realizing that being a merchant here isn't just unprofitable, it's downright dangerous. You finally escape on a stolen gondola, vowing to leave Venice behind. The Black Death has made trade impossible, and you're lucky to get out with your life, let alone your silk. As dusk settles over Venice, you sit on your stolen gondola, drifting down a quiet canal, your bundle of silk still unsold. The city is eerily silent, save for the distant toll of church bells and the faint cries of the dying. You reflect on your failed venture, your eyes half closed, mouth in a slight frown, as you realize why you couldn't be a merchant here. The Black Death has turned Venice into a city of fear, not trade. The plague has killed half the population, shut down markets, and made everyone suspicious of outsiders like you. You think of the townspeople, the plague doctors, the guards, all trying to survive in a world turned upside down. Your dreams of wealth seem trivial now, compared to the true cost of the plague. Lives lost, families torn apart, and a city on the brink of collapse. You've learned a hard lesson. In 1348 Venice, survival is the only currency that matters, and your silk is worth less than a loaf of bread. Night falls and you've decided to leave Venice behind, your gondola drifting out of the city toward the open sea. You lie back, your unsold silk as a makeshift pillow, too tired to care about your failed dreams. Carved ZZZ lines float above your head as you drift off. The day's been a parade of disasters: the panicked city, the rotten fish, the quarantine boat, the burning threats, the dungeon. But you've escaped with your life, and that's more than many in Venice can say. This city fades into the distance, its carved rooftops glowing faintly under the stars, a reminder of the world you couldn't conquer. You dream of your modern life, where plagues are a distant memory and silk isn't a death sentence, realizing you're not cut out for 1348 Venice. As you sleep, the gentle lapping of the canal water lulls you deeper, a modern misfit in a medieval world, safe at last in the arms of dreams. And so, a journey to Venice during the Black Death comes to a close, leaving behind a tale of trade, terror, and a few unsold silks in a city gripped by plague. If you're still awake, I hope you've enjoyed this medieval misadventure. If you're drifting off, let the canal's gentle waters carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me on this historical voyage. Like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts, or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as adventurous as Luca's, minus the plague. Welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're stepping into the quiet, candlelit world of a medieval scriptorium in the 12th century. A place of endless quills, parchment, and the slow, steady work of a scribe named Brother Edric. Imagine spending your day hunched over a desk, copying ancient texts by hand, with nothing but the flicker of a candle and the occasional squeak of a mouse to keep you company. We'll follow Edric through his surprisingly dull yet oddly fascinating day, exploring the art of medieval bookmaking, the challenges of monastic life, and the quiet legacy of those who preserved knowledge in a dark age. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this ancient routine, settle in, dim the lights, and maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum. Oh, and if you enjoy this journey, give the video a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, let's turn the page and step into the past. It's just before dawn in the year 1150, and your brother Edric, a monk and scribe living in a Benedictine monastery in northern England. You wake to the sound of the morning bell, its deep clang echoing through the stone corridors of the monastery. a signal for the first prayers of the day. Lauds. Your cell is a tiny room, barely big enough for a straw bed, a wooden stool, and a small table. The walls are cold stone, and the air is so chilly you can see your breath, like tiny clouds in the dim light filtering through a narrow window. Your bed is a simple straw mat covered with a scratchy wool blanket. And let's just say the fleas have decided you're their personal buffet. You roll out of bed, your joints creaking from the cold, and kneel on the icy floor to say a quick prayer. Give me strength for another day of quills and parchment, you mutter, hoping for a miracle to make the scriptorium a little warmer today. You pull on your gray monastic robe, the rough wool itching against your skin, and slip into a pair of worn leather sandals. Breakfast isn't a thing yet. Monks like you eat only twice a day, and the first meal won't come until after morning prayers. Your stomach grumbles, but you ignore it. Grabbing your rosary beads and heading out into the cloister. The monastery is quiet except for the shuffle of other monks' sandals as they make their way to the chapel. The air smells of damp stone, candle wax, and the faint whiff of yesterday's barley soup. You pass the herb garden, where Brother Thomas is already tending to the rosemary and lavender, his breath visible in the frosty morning. The chapel is dimly lit with flickering candles, and you join the other monks in chanting psalms, your voice blending with theirs in a low, rhythmic hum. It's a moment of peace before the long day ahead, a day of copying manuscripts in the scriptorium where your real work begins. After morning prayers, you head to the refectory for a simple meal. A bowl of barley porridge and a piece of coarse bread, washed down with watered-down ale. It's not exactly a feast, but it fills your stomach enough to face the day. You make your way to the scriptorium, a small room in the monastery where the monks copy manuscripts. The scriptorium is a quiet, cold space, with stone walls and narrow windows that let in just enough light to see your work. Wooden desks are lined up in rows, each one holding a slanted writing surface, an ink pot, a quill, and a pile of parchment. You settle at your desk, your breath visible in the chilly air. Your task today is to copy a Latin translation of Aristotle's Physics, a book the abbot wants for the monastery library. First, you need to prepare your tools. You pick up a goose feather quill, carefully trimming the tip with a small knife to create a sharp nib. Too sharp, and it'll tear the parchment. Too blunt, and your letters will look like a child scribbles. You mix ink in a small pot, grinding a lump of black pigment with water and a bit of gum arabic to make it stick. You dip your quill, but in your sleepy haze you knock the ink pot over, sending a black puddle across the desk. You mutter a prayer for patience as you mop it up with a rag, hoping the abbot doesn't notice the stain on your sleeve. Next, you prepare the parchment, which is made from sheepskin, stretched, scraped, and dried until it's smooth. It's expensive stuff, and every sheet is precious, so you can't afford to make mistakes. You rule the page with faint lines using a lead stylus, creating a grid to keep your writing neat. The parchment smells faintly of animal hide, and you notice a small tear in the corner, probably from a clumsy novice. You sigh, knowing you'll have to work around it. Finally, you light a small candle for extra light. Its flame flickering in the drafty room. You're ready to start copying, but the real challenge is just beginning. With your tools ready, you begin the slow, painstaking work of copying Aristotle's Physics. The original manuscript sits on a stand beside you, its pages worn and faded from years of use. You dip your quill in ink and start writing, carefully forming each letter in a neat, rounded script called Carolingian minuscule, a style designed to be clear and readable. Each stroke of the quill is deliberate. The scratch of the nib against parchment, the only sound in the quiet scriptorium, aside from the occasional cough of another monk or the squeak of a mouse scurrying across the floor. The work is tedious, to say the least. You're copying word for word, line by line, page by page, and there's no room for error. If you make a mistake, you can't just cross it out. Parchment is too precious for that. Instead, you have to scrape the ink off with a knife, which leaves a rough spot that might tear if you're not careful. Your hand cramps after the first hour, and your back aches from hunching over the desk. The candlelight flickers, making your eyes strain, and you have to squint to read the faded text of the original. Every so often, you pause to stretch your fingers, muttering a prayer for patience as a mouse steals a crumb from your desk. You glare at it, but it's too quick for you to catch. The monotony is mind-numbing. You've been copying the same passage for hours, and you're only halfway through the page. Your mind starts to wander. Maybe you should have joined the monks in the herb garden instead. But a sharp reprimand from Brother Anselm, the head scribe, snaps you back to focus. Adric, stop daydreaming. The abbot wants this done by Vespers. You nod, dipping your quill again, and keep going. It's not glamorous work, but it's important. Books are rare and precious in the Middle Ages, and your copies help preserve knowledge for future generations. As the morning drags on, the challenges of scriptorian work become painfully clear. The cold is a constant enemy. The scriptorium is unheated, and your fingers are numb from the chill. You blow on them to keep them warm, but it doesn't help much. The candle you're using for light keeps dripping wax onto the desk, and once a drop lands on your parchment, smudging a letter you just wrote. You groan, scraping it off with your knife, but the spot looks uneven now, and you know Brother Anselm will notice. Sure enough, he glances over from his desk and snaps, "Edric, if you ruin that page, you'll be saying extra prayers tonight." You mutter an apology, but inside, you're wondering if copying books is worth all this trouble. Then, there's the ink. It's a finicky mixture, and if you don't get the consistency just right, it either clumps on the quill or spreads too thin, making your letters look like spiderwebs. You've already had to remake the ink twice today because it keeps drying out in the cold air. And don't even get started on the quills. They wear out quickly, and you have to stop every hour to trim a new one. Once, you trim it too sharply and end up tearing the parchment, leaving a small hole in the middle of a sentence. You sigh, knowing you'll have to stitch it up later with a needle and thread, a tedious task that'll take up the rest of your morning. Monastic life adds its own challenges. Silence is the rule in the scriptorium. No talking, no humming, just the scratch of quills and the occasional cough. It's meant to keep you focused, but it also makes the day feel endless. You're not even allowed to leave for a break unless it's time for prayers or meals. Your stomach grumbles as you think of the midday meal, more bread and a bowl of watery vegetable stew, but that's still hours away. For now, you're stuck at your desk, copying line after line with only the mice for company. Finally, the bell rings for sext, the midday prayer, signaling a break from your work. You set down your quill, stretch your cramped fingers, and join the other monks in the chapel for a brief service. After prayers, you head to the refectory for lunch, a simple meal of barley bread, a bowl of vegetable stew made with turnips and leeks, and a small cup of ale. The stew is lukewarm and a bit bland, but after hours of copying, it tastes like a feast. You sit at a long wooden table, with the other monks eating in silence as one of them reads a passage from the Bible aloud, a monastery rule to keep your mind on holy thoughts. Despite the silence, there's a small moment of chaos when Brother Cuthbert, a clumsy novice, accidentally spills his stew across the table. You stifle a laugh as he scrambles to clean it up, earning a stern look from the abbot. For a moment, you feel a sense of camaraderie with your fellow monks. You're all in this together, fleas and all. After the meal, you're allowed a short walk in the cloister, a covered walkway surrounding the monastery's courtyard. The air is crisp, and the herb garden smells of lavender and rosemary, a welcome change from the musty scriptorium. You stretch your legs, feeling the sun on your face, and for a brief moment, the day doesn't feel so endless. But the break is short-lived. The bell rings again, calling you back to the scriptorium. You sigh, knowing you've got another long stretch of copying ahead. As you return to your desk, you notice the mouse from earlier has stolen another crumb. You're starting to think it's mocking you. You dip your quill in ink and get back to work, the scratch of the nib against parchment filling the quiet room once more. As the afternoon sun filters through the scriptorium's narrow windows, you take a moment to appreciate the importance of your work. Books in the Middle Ages are rare and precious. There's no printing press yet, so every book has to be copied by hand. Monasteries like yours are the guardians of knowledge, preserving ancient texts like Aristotle, the Bible, and the writings of early Christian fathers. Without scribes like you, this knowledge would be lost to time, buried under the chaos of the times. The manuscript you are copying, Aristotle's Physics, is part of the monastery's growing library, a collection that will be used by monks, scholars, and even visiting nobles. But copying isn't just about the words, it's an art form. You're not just writing, you're creating a book that might last for centuries. Every so often, you add a decorative touch, like an illuminated initial, a large, ornate letter at the start of a chapter, painted with red and blue ink and a bit of gold leaf. It's a small moment of creativity in an otherwise monotonous day, and you take pride in making the letter as beautiful as you can, even if your hand shakes from the cold. The process of making a book is a labor of love. The parchment comes from sheepskin, prepared by other monks who spend days scraping and stretching the hides. The ink is made from oak galls and iron salts, a recipe that took years to perfect. The quills are plucked from geese, and the gold leaf comes from a merchant in the nearest town, a rare luxury for the monastery. Each book takes months to complete, and a single mistake can ruin weeks of work. But when it's done, it's a thing of beauty, a window into the past, a bridge to the future. You may never see the finished book, but you know your work will live on long after you're gone. By mid-afternoon, the scriptorium feels like a prison. You've been copying for hours, and the monotony is starting to wear you down. Your eyes are tired from squinting at the faded text. Your hand is cramping again, and the cold has settled into your bones. You've lost count of how many times you've written the word philosophia, and you're starting to wonder if Aristotle ever took a break. The silence of the scriptorium is oppressive, broken only by the scratch of quills and the occasional cough from Brother Anselm. You try to stay focused, but distractions keep creeping in. A bird lands on the windowsill, chirping loudly, and you glance up, imagining what it would be like to fly away from this desk. You daydream about the village festival you heard about last week. There'll be music, dancing, maybe even a pie or two. Your stomach grumbles at the thought, and you shake your head, trying to focus. But the candle has burned low, and a puddle of wax has formed on the desk. You must have dozed off for a moment. You jolt upright, hoping Brother Anselm didn't notice, but he's too busy correcting a novice's work to care. The mouse from earlier scurries across the floor again, and you swear it's taunting you now. You toss a crumb at it, but it just grabs the prize and runs off, leaving you to your endless copying. You sigh, dipping your quill in ink, and keep going. The afternoon feels like it'll never end. But you know you have to finish this page before Vespers, the evening prayers, or you'll be stuck here even longer. As the day draws to a close, you finally finish the page you've been working on. It's not perfect. The tear in the parchment made things tricky, and there's a small smudge where your hand slipped, but it's done. You carefully set the page aside to dry, feeling a small sense of accomplishment. You've been working on this manuscript for weeks, and with this page, you're one step closer to completing it. You imagine the finished book on a shelf in the monastery library, where it might be read by scholars, monks, or even a visiting bishop. Scribes like you are the unsung heroes of the Middle Ages, in an era often called the Dark Ages, when wars, plagues, and invasions threaten to erase the knowledge of the past. Monasteries become beacons of learning. The books you copy, texts by Aristotle, Augustine, and the ancient Romans, keep alive the wisdom of antiquity. Without your work, much of this knowledge would be lost forever, buried under the chaos of the times. The manuscripts you create will be passed down for centuries, some even surviving into the modern age, where they'll be studied by historians and marveled at in museums. But your work isn't just about preservation, it's about faith. As a monk, you see copying as a form of prayer, a way to serve God by spreading His word and the wisdom of His creation. Each letter you write is an act of devotion, even if your hand cramps and your eyes ache. You may never leave this monastery, but your manuscripts will travel far beyond its walls, carrying your silent legacy into the future. As the sun sets, the bell rings for Vespers, the evening prayer. You set down your quill, stretch your aching back, and join the other monks in the chapel. The air is warm with the glow of candles, and the familiar chant of psalms fills the space, a soothing rhythm that calms your tired mind. After prayers, you head to the refectory for supper, a simple meal of bread, cheese, and a bowl of lentil soup. The food is plain, but it's filling, and you savor every bite, grateful for the warmth in your belly after a long day. Back in your cell, you light a small candle and kneel for a final prayer, thanking God for the strength to get through another day. You reflect on the pages you copied, the mistakes you made, and the small victories, like the illuminated letter you're particularly proud of. Your hands are stained with ink, your back aches, and your eyes are heavy, but there's a quiet satisfaction in knowing you've done your part to preserve knowledge and serve your faith. You blow out the candle and lie down on your straw mat, the fleas greeting you like old friends. The monastery is silent now, except for the distant hoot of an owl and the faint creak of the wooden roof. As you drift off, the day's work fades into the background, replaced by dreams of parchment, quills, and the endless scratch of writing. Another day as a medieval scribe is done, and you've survived to do it all again tomorrow. And so, a day in the life of a medieval scribe comes to a close, leaving behind a legacy of ink, parchment, and quiet devotion in the heart of a dark age. If you're still awake after this 90-minute journey, I hope you've learned a bit about this ancient craft. If you're drifting off, let the scratch of quills carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as peaceful as a monk's prayer. Good evening, dear listener, and welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're marching into the grand yet slightly silly world of Napoleon Bonaparte in 1805, right before his legendary Battle of Austerlitz. But forget the cannons and conquests for a moment. Our emperor is having a hat crisis. Picture a day where the mighty Napoleon, conqueror of nations, is more worried about his bicorn hat than his battle plans, leading to a parade of wardrobe mishaps that'll tickle your funny bone. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this imperial caper, settle in, dim the lights, and perhaps turn on a fan for that soft hum. If you enjoy this journey, do give a like, subscribe, and whisper in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, let's adjust our hats and step into the past, carefully, lest they fall off. 'Tis a crisp morning in 1805, and you're Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French, pacing in your military tent on the eve of the Battle of Austerlitz. Your camp's buzzing, soldiers polishing swords, horses snorting, generals plotting, but you've got a crisis. Your hat. You're Napoleon, and your bicorn hat is your crown, your glory, your everything. Murat, where are my hats? You bellow, your voice a mix of imperial command and whiny toddler, as you hold up a bicorn so tiny it looks like it belongs on a mouse. It perches on your finger like a toy, making your oversized cartoon head look even sillier. General Murat, your flamboyant cavalry commander, struts in, his red hussar uniform blazing like a tomato, golden braids so big they could double as pillows. "Sire, I've brought every bicorn in the camp," he says, his long nose wiggling as he tries not to laugh, cartoon sparkles twinkling around him. You plop the tiny hat on your head. It sits there like a sad cherry on a cake, and your eyes bulge out, mouth gaping. This hat wouldn't fit a flea, let alone an emperor. You toss it aside, and it lands on a candle, nearly setting the tent ablaze. Murat stomps out the flame with a sizzle, muttering, "Perhaps we should fight the Austrians with hats, sire. They'd surrender in fright." You glare, but a chuckle escapes. Your hat obsession is already off to a fiery start. Determined to find a hat that fits, you snatch another bicorn from Murat's tray. This one's so huge it could double as a soup pot. "This will make me look formidable," you declare, plopping it on with a cartoonish boing. But the brim sags over your eyes like a drooping umbrella, blocking your entire view. Your big cartoon eyes disappear under the hat, and you stumble forward, knocking over a table. "Sacre bleu, I can't see a thing," you wail. Your mouth gaping as cartoon sweat drops fly, your battle map of Austerlitz, landing in a muddy puddle with a splat. General Ney, your fiery marshal, steps in, his blue uniform crisp with a red sash, but his comically large nose wiggles as he tries not to laugh. His eyes pop out with a pop effect. "Sire, perhaps a smaller hat might suit your vision," he suggests, his voice quivering. You lift the brim just enough to glare. "Nay, I'll have you polishing cannons if you laugh at your emperor." But the hat slips off, landing on Ney's foot with a thud. He hops around, cartoon stars circling his head, while you mutter, "Well, at least it's good for something, keeping my marshals on their toes." You toss the oversized hat aside, your hat hunt far from over. You finally find a hat that fits, your favorite bicorn, black as coal, with a crisp brim that makes you look like the conqueror you are. Perfect. You proclaim, striking a pose in a camp mirror, your cartoon eyes sparkling with pride. But as you step outside to review your troops, a cheeky pigeon decides your hat is the perfect perch. It swoops down with a whoosh, landing with a plop, and leaves a white, gooey mess right on the brim. Cartoon goo dripping down. "Sacre, you roar, your oversized head shaking with fury, eyes lopsided and mouth gaping as cartoon steam puffs from your ears. This bird dares to defile the Emperor of France." The pigeon coos mockingly, flapping off with a swoop, leaving you to deal with the mess. General Berthier, your meticulous chief of staff, steps forward, his blue uniform neat with golden braids, but his tiny cartoon legs wobble as he tries not to laugh. His mouth wobbles like jelly. "Sire, perhaps it's good luck," he ventures, but you glare, wiping the hat with a handkerchief, muttering, "If this is luck, I'd rather lose at Austerlitz." The troops snicker, and you snap. The next man who laughs will be cleaning latrines with his toothbrush. But a wry smile creeps in. This hat obsession is a battlefield of its own. Back in the tent, you're on a mission to replace your besmirched hat. "Murat, bring me more hats," you order, and your cavalry commander returns with a stack so tall it could block the sun. "Sire, I've raided every officer's trunk," he says, his long nose wiggling as he balances the pile, cartoon sweat drops flying. You grab hat after hat, trying them on with the intensity of a general planning a siege. Cartoon question marks pop above your head as you waffle. One's too tight, pinching your head like a walnut. "I'll have a headache before the battle," you grumble. Another's too loose, slipping over your ears. "I look like a jester, not an emperor." A third has a feather so long it tickles your nose, making you sneeze. Achoo! The hat flies off, knocking over a candlestick, and Murat dives to catch it with a swoop before the tent catches fire, cartoon flames flickering. "Sire, perhaps we should focus on the battle," he suggests, but you wave him off. A general without a hat is like a cannon without powder. "Murat, I must look the part." The pile collapses, hats rolling everywhere, with a roll effect, leaving Murat chasing them like a man herding cats, while you laugh. A hat parade before a battle, what a way to start the day! With your hat finally in place, muddy but majestic, you stride out to address your troops. The field of Austerlitz stretches before you, a sea of soldiers in blue, their muskets gleaming, the tricolor flag waving like a tipsy banner. You climb onto a platform, your blue coat billowing dramatically, and begin your speech. "Soldiers of France, today we shall." But a sudden gust of wind snatches your bicorn right off your head, sending it soaring over the troops like a runaway balloon. Whoosh! Cartoon stars circle your head as you flail, nearly tumbling off with a wobble. "Sacre bleu!" you shout, your eyes bulging and mouth gaping in cartoonish panic, arms flapping like a windmill. The hat lands in a muddy puddle with a splat, and the soldiers, thousands of them, burst into giggles, their tiny cartoon legs shaking as they double over. You straighten up, trying to salvage your dignity. "The wind, it salutes our victory," you declare, but your face is redder than a grenadier's coat. General Ney nearby picks up the soggy hat, handing it back with a smirk. "Sire, perhaps the Austrians will surrender at the sight of your battle-worn hat." You snatch it, muttering, "I'll have you polishing cannons, Ney, if you don't stop smirking." The speech continues, but your hat's muddy glory steals the show. Back in the tent, you gather your generals to finalize the battle plan. Your muddy hat perched defiantly on your head. A large map of Austerlitz lies on the table, marked with troop positions in red and blue ink. "We'll strike here at dawn," you declare, pointing dramatically. But you've left your pointer stick outside. Undeterred, you grab your hat, using its brim to point at the map like a makeshift baton. Cartoon sparkles around you as you jab. "Here, Berthier, we'll flank the enemy." But the hat's brim is sharper than you thought, and with a rip it tears a hole right through the Pratzen Heights, your key position. "Sacre bleu!" you exclaim, your eyes popping out in cartoonish dismay, mouth gaping as the map splits. Rip. General Berthier, ever the diplomat, tries to hide a smirk. Cartoon sweat drops on his face. "Sire, perhaps we've conquered the map already?" You glare. "Berthier, if I wanted to fight paper, I'd be a clerk, not an emperor." You patch the map with a scrap, muttering, "This hat's more dangerous than the enemy. I should wear it into battle." The generals chuckle, and you join in. The hat may be a menace, but your spirit remains unconquered. Your muddy hat won't do for the eve of victory, so you bark, "Nay, find me a new hat." Your marshal returns with a fresh bicorn, pristine and perfectly sized, its black felt gleaming like a general's ambition. You plop it on with a boing, striking a pose in the mirror, your cartoon eyes sparkling with triumph, mouth stretching into a wide grin. Sparkle. "Now this is an emperor's hat," you declare, turning to Ney with a nod. "I'll lead my men to glory in style." Ney gives a playful salute, his comically large nose wiggling. "Sire, you'll conquer Austerlitz and fashion before the day is done." Cartoon stars pop above his head as he grins. You chuckle, glancing at the pile of discarded hats in the corner. Too small, too large, too bird-stained, some with cartoon cracks from your antics. "A general's hat is his crown, Ney," you muse, adjusting the brim with a flourish. "And I'll wear this one to victory." The tent buzzes with impending battle energy, but for now, you're just a man who's won the war against his wardrobe. You stride out, hat firmly in place, ready to face the Austrians with the confidence only a perfect bicorn can bring. "Why you're busy with your hat saga? Life in the camp rolls on for your generals, a motley crew of loyal but quirky commanders." Outside the tent, General Murat, the dashing cavalry leader, polishes his saber with exaggerated effort, his red hussar uniform blazing like a tomato, oversized golden braids bouncing. Cartoon sweat drops fly as he mutters, "If I shine any brighter, the Austrians will surrender from sheer dazzle." His long nose wiggles with pride, but he accidentally polishes too hard and the saber slips, clank, hitting his boot. Cartoon stars circling his head as he hops around, yelping, "Sacre bleu, my poor toes!" Nearby, General Ney, the fiery bravest of the brave, tries on one of your discarded bicorns, his comically large nose poking out as he grins cheekily. Cartoon sparkles around him. "I look almost as good as the Emperor," he boasts, striking a pose. But the hat's too big, slipping over his eyes with a plop. He stumbles into a tent pole, cartoon bonk sound echoing as he mutters, "Perhaps I'll stick to fighting." Meanwhile, General Berthier, the meticulous chief of staff, scribbles on a map, his tiny cartoon legs wobbling under his oversized desk. Ink splatters everywhere with a splash, and he grumbles, "If I survive Napoleon's hat obsession, the Austrians will be a breeze." The camp's a circus, but these generals are the heart of your army, ready to fight and laugh by your side. As the day progresses, you can't help but think about how your hat stacks up against the enemy's fashion. Across the battlefield, the Austrian and Russian generals are preparing too, and you've heard rumors of their own sartorial splendor. "Murat, what do we know of their hats?" you ask, adjusting your new bicorn with a proud cartoonish grin, sparkles around you. Murat, his long nose wiggling, reports, "Sire, the Austrian General Kutuzov wears a shako hat, tall, feathered, and rather smug, if you ask me." You imagine Kutuzov on the other side of the river, his comically tiny head dwarfed by a towering shako hat, its feathers so long it tickles his nose. Cartoon sparkles around him as he smirks, "Napoleon's bicorn is no match for my shako." His white uniform with a green sash gleams, but the feather keeps drooping, and he sneezes, "Achoo!" knocking the hat askew with a wobble. Back in your camp, you scoff. A shako? He looks like a peacock with a head cold. Your soldiers in blue snicker, while the Austrians in white giggle at Kutuzov's sneeze. Fashion may be a battlefield, but your bicorn, muddy or not, has a charm all its own. And you're ready to prove it in battle, hat and all. Scene is framed with a playful border of cartoon military insignia in gold and blue. Your hatted session isn't just a personal quirk. It's become the talk of the camp, boosting your soldiers' morale in the most unexpected way. As you stride through the ranks, your new bicorn tilted jauntily, The troops erupt in cheers, their tiny cartoon legs bouncing with joy, cartoon hearts sparkling in their eyes. Vive l'Empereur! Vive le chapeau! They shout, waving their muskets, some mimicking your hat with makeshift paper versions, one soldier even wearing a pot on his head with a clank. You pause on a hill, your cartoon eyes gleaming with pride, mouth stretching into a wide grin, sparkle. My hat inspires them more than my speeches, you muse, adjusting the brim with a flourish. A young soldier, his legs comically tiny, salutes with a paper hat. Sire, if your hat can survive a pigeon, we can survive the Austrians. The camp roars with laughter, and you join in. Then let's march to victory, hats and all. Your bicorn, muddy or not, has become a symbol of resilience. A quirky reminder that even an emperor can laugh at himself. And that laughter fuels the courage of your Grande Armée. As the sun sets over Austerlitz, you stand on a hill overlooking your army. The tricolor flag glowing in the fading light, slightly tilted for a whimsical touch. Your new hat sits proudly on your head, a symbol of the day's small but hard-won victory. Cartoon thought bubbles with hats float above you. You spent hours obsessing over hats. Too small, too large, too bird-stained. But now, with your troops ready and your plans set, you can't help but laugh at the absurdity. Murat, you call to your cavalry commander, who's polishing his saber nearby. Do you think the Austrians will tremble at my hat? Murat, his red uniform blazing, grins playfully, his long nose wiggling, cartoon sparkles around him. Sire, they'll surrender the moment they see your bicorn, though the pigeon may have helped. You chuckle, adjusting your hat with a flourish. A good hat is worth 1,000 cannons, Murat. Never forget that. You reflect on the chaos, the tiny hat, the pigeon's mischief, the wind's betrayal, but also on your army's strength, your general's loyalty, and the empire you've built. Fashion may be a battlefield, but tomorrow you'll fight the real one, hat and all. For now, you bask in the twilight, a conqueror with a sense of humor, ready to lead your men to glory. Back in your tent, you prepare for rest. The day's hat saga finally behind you. You shed your blue military coat, the oversized golden epaulets, cartoonishly large, and slip into a simple white shirt and trousers. Emperors need sleep too. General Berthier, ever the dutiful guide, tucks you into your camp bed with exaggerated care, his tiny legs wobbling as he fluffs your pillow. Cartoon hearts pop around him. Good night, sire. May your dreams be free of pigeons, he teases, a playful smirk on his face. You roll your cartoon eyes. Berthier, if I dream of hats, I'll have you court-martialed. But a sleepy grin spreads. ZZs float above your head. Your new bicorn rests on a table, a cartoon crown perched on it for whimsy, a silent sentinel of your day's trials. The camp's quiet, save for the distant crackle of campfires and soldiers' murmurs. You reflect on the chaos, the tiny hat, the bird mess, the wind's betrayal, but also on the battle ahead. Austerlitz will be your masterpiece, and your hat will lead the charge. As you drift off, the day fades into dreams of victory, hats, and a pigeon that just won't quit. Another day as Napoleon is done, and you've survived, hat and all. And so, a day in the life of Napoleon Bonaparte comes to a close, leaving behind a legacy of conquest, courage, and a rather amusing hat obsession on the eve of Austerlitz. If you're still awake, I hope you've enjoyed these imperial antics. If you're drifting off, let the drum's gentle beat carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me on this hat-tastic journey. Like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as bold as Napoleon's bicorn. minus the pigeon mess. Good evening, dear listener, and welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're setting sail to a time long before Australia was even a dot on the map. Way back before the 17th century, when this mysterious land was a complete unknown to the outside world. Imagine being a modern-day adventurer, dreaming of living in Australia before it was discovered by Europeans, only to find out it's a lot harder than you thought. We'll follow our brave but slightly clueless hero as he tries and hilariously fails to survive in a land he can't even find. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this uncharted misadventure, settle in, dim the lights, and perhaps turn on a fan for that soft hum. If you enjoy this journey, do give a like, subscribe, and whisper in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, let's hoist the sails and drift into the past, carefully, lest we get lost at sea. 'Tis a foggy morning in 1550, and you're Captain Bartholomew, a modern-day dreamer who somehow found himself in the 16th century, determined to live in Australia, except, well, no one knows where it is yet. You're standing at the helm of a rickety wooden ship, the SS Hopeful, clutching a parchment map that doesn't even show Australia. It's just a big blank spot labeled Unknown Lands, with a little carving of a sea monster for good measure. I'll be the first to live in Australia, you declare, your voice brimming with misplaced confidence, your eyes wide with determination as you gaze at the horizon. Your crew, a handful of scruffy sailors who think you're mad, shakes their heads as you set sail from a European port. "Captain, where are we going?" one asks, scratching his beard. "Australia, of course," you reply, pointing at the blank spot on the map. "It's got kangaroos, beaches, and sunshine. I read about it in a dream." The sailors exchange confused looks. Dreams of such lands are unheard of in 1550. And one mutters, "He's lost his wits, but at least the pay's good." You ignore them, gripping the ship's wheel, ready to sail to a land you can't possibly find. But as the ship creaks and the waves grow taller, you start to wonder if this journey might be a tad trickier than you thought. Days turn into weeks on the open sea, and you're starting to realize why Australia hasn't been discovered yet. It's really hard to find. Your map is useless, just a big blank space with a carving of a sea monster that's starting to look a bit too real. "It's got to be around here somewhere," you insist, squinting at the horizon, your feathered hat drooping in the salty air. But the ocean stretches endlessly, and your ship creaks ominously with every wave. Creak, creak. A storm rolls in, and your parchment map flaps wildly in the wind, threatening to tear apart, leaving you drenched and muttering, "Well, I guess I won't need a map if I never find land." The sailors are losing patience, and one points at a shadowy shape in the water, a sea monster, just like on your map. "Captain, we're doomed," he cries. But you wave him off. "Nonsense. It's probably just a very big fish." The fish circles closer, revealing sharp, carved teeth. Gulp. Your eyes widen in panic, mouth opening in a silent scream as you shout, "Row faster, men! I didn't sign up to be fish food." The sailors row like their lives depend on it, which they do, while you cling to the mast, realizing that without maps, compasses, or even a clue where Australia is, this journey is more doomed than your map. Getting there is the first impossible hurdle, and you haven't even faced the land yet. Miraculously, after months at sea, dodging storms, sea monsters, and mutinous grumbles from your crew, you spot land. "Australia at last!" you cheer, your voice cracking from exhaustion as you stumble ashore, your feathered hat now a soggy mess. But the land you found is no paradise. It's a harsh, sun-scorched outback with sand so hot it burns your feet through your boots. Sizzle. Where are the beaches? The kangaroos? You wail, your eyes wide, mouth downturned in dismay, as you fan yourself with your tattered map, only to realize there's no shade in sight. You take a step, and a snake slithers out from a bush, hissing with an angular, carved mouth. Hiss. Nice snake, good snake, you stammer, backing away, but you trip over a rock and land face first in the sand. Thud. As you spit out sand, you notice aboriginal figures in the distance, watching you with serene curiosity, their bodies painted with ochre, perfectly at home in this harsh land. They've lived here for tens of thousands of years, thriving through hunting, gathering, and deep knowledge of the land. But you're a fish out of water, literally. Without their skills, their culture, or even a clue how to find water, you're already realizing survival here might be a tad trickier than you thought. The sun climbs higher, and you're desperate for water. Your canteen's empty, and there's not a river in sight. Australia's supposed to have water, right? You mutter, your throat drier than the sand around you. You start digging with a stick, hoping for an underground spring. Dig, dig. Your face twists in desperation, eyes wide, mouth open with hope. But all you find is more sand and a grumpy lizard that hisses at you. Hiss. Sorry, friend, I'm not dinner, you yelp, scrambling back. You spot a kangaroo hopping nearby, and in a stroke of genius, you decide to follow it. Kangaroos need water too, right? But as you chase it, the kangaroo grabs your empty canteen and hops off with its carved legs. Hop, hop. Hey, that's mine, you shout, running after it, but you trip over a rock, thud, and land face first in the dirt. The kangaroo disappears, leaving you panting. I guess kangaroos don't share. Without knowledge of the land's hidden water sources, like the Aboriginal people have, you're stuck, thirsty, and realizing hydration in this uncharted land is a survival skill you simply don't have. Your stomach growls louder than a sea monster. And you realize food is your next challenge. There are no grocery stores in pre-discovery Australia. You spot a small stream and decide to catch a fish, thinking, how hard can it be? You wade in, carved water lines rising as you try to grab a fish with your bare hands. Splash! But the fish slips away, and you lose your balance, falling face first into the water. Splash! I'm not a fish, you sputter, emerging soaked, your hat floating away with carved ripples. From the distance, Aboriginal hunters watch with serene curiosity, their bodies painted with ochre, perfectly at home in this harsh land. They've mastered hunting here, tracking kangaroos, fishing with nets, gathering bush tucker like yams and berries. But you don't even know what's edible. You try to eat a random plant, but it's bitter, and you spit it out. Patooey. I'd starve before I figure this out, you groan, realizing survival here requires knowledge you don't have. How to hunt, what to eat, and how to avoid poisonous critters. Your modern diet of pizza and coffee won't cut it in this untamed land. As if thirst and hunger weren't enough, Australia's wildlife decides to give you a proper welcome. You're wandering the outback, looking for shade, when a snake slithers out from a bush, hissing with an angular carved mouth. Hiss. Nice snake, good snake, you stammer, your eyes wide, mouth open in terror as you back away. Carved slither lines, but you step on a twig. Snap, and the snake lunges, chasing you across the sand as you run for your life, screaming, I'm too modern to be snake food. You dodge the snake, only to stumble into a dingo's territory, a wild dog with carved fur and sharp teeth, watching with a carved smirk. The dingo gives chase too, and you're now running from two predators, your hat flying off. Whoosh. Why didn't I bring a survival guide? You wail, diving behind a rock to hide. Australia's wildlife, snakes, dingoes, spiders, is deadly, and without the knowledge Aboriginal people have to coexist with these creatures, you'd be lucky to survive a week. Your modern sneakers and optimism are no match for this untamed wilderness. After escaping the wildlife, you finally encounter a group of Aboriginal people, hoping they'll help you survive. Good day, friends. Can you help me find food and shelter? You ask, your voice echoing with carved speech lines. But the Aboriginal group, their bodies painted with ochre, holding spears, just stares at you with puzzled expressions, their faces serene but confused. Huh. You try again. You know, a place to rest, bread, water. They tilt their heads, whispering among themselves in a language you can't understand, and you realize there's a massive cultural and language barrier. You attempt to mime eating, but they think you're signaling for a hunt, and one offers you a spear instead. Whoosh! No, I don't want to hunt. I just want a meal, you cry, your eyes wide, mouth open in frustration. The Aboriginal people have their own rich languages, traditions, and ways of life, honed over millennia. But you lack the knowledge to communicate or integrate. Without understanding their culture, survival skills, or even basic greetings, you're more of a curiosity than a neighbor, a fish out of water in a land you don't belong in. As evening falls, a storm rolls in. Dark clouds, howling winds, and rain that turns the outback into a muddy mess. You've managed to build a makeshift shelter from sticks and leaves, but it's about as sturdy as a paper hat. Crack. It collapses under the rain, carved rain lines falling on your head as you sit in the mud, your face drooping with defeat, eyes half closed, mouth downturned in exhaustion. I just wanted to live in Australia, you mutter, shivering, but this place is trying to kill me. In the distance, the Aboriginal group you met earlier huddles under a natural rock shelter, perfectly dry and warm. Their knowledge of the land keeping them safe. You realize why you couldn't live here before it was discovered. There were no maps to find it. The journey was deadly, and the land itself, its heat, wildlife, and storms, required skills you don't have. The Aboriginal people thrived here for millennia, with their deep understanding of the environment. But you're a modern dreamer, out of place and out of luck, with nothing but a soggy hat and a newfound respect for those who called this land home. Night falls, and you found a dry spot under a tree, making a bed of leaves that's about as comfortable as a rock. But it'll do. You're too tired to care, your soggy hat nesting beside you like a loyal, if useless, companion. Carved ZZ lines float above your head as you drift off. The day's been a parade of disasters. The impossible journey, the harsh outback, the wildlife, the cultural gap, the storm. But you've learned a hard truth. Australia before its discovery was a land for the Aboriginal people, who thrived with skills and knowledge you could never match. In the distance, the Aboriginal group sits around a campfire, their faces serene as they share stories under the stars. Perfectly at home, you dream of your modern life, air conditioning, pizza, Wi-Fi, and realize you're not cut out for this uncharted world. As you sleep, the sounds of the outback, crickets, rustling leaves, and the faint crackle of the fire lull you deeper. A modern misfit in an ancient land, safe at last in the arms of dreams. And so, a journey to Australia before its discovery comes to a close, leaving behind a tale of survival, struggle, and a few soggy hats in a land unknown to the world. If you're still awake, I hope you've enjoyed this uncharted misadventure. If you're drifting off, Let the ocean's gentle waves carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me on this historical voyage. Like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as adventurous as Bartholomew's, minus the sea monsters. Good evening, dear listener, and welcome to another soothing journey through history. Tonight, we're stepping into the cluttered, creative world of Leonardo da Vinci in 1505, right in the heart of Renaissance Florence. Our genius inventor is hard at work on his wildest contraptions, flying machines, tanks, and more. But oh dear, they're not exactly cooperating. Picture a day where the great Leonardo, master of art and science, turns his workshop into a circus of failed inventions with mishaps that'll make you giggle as you drift off. If you're ready to trade your modern comforts for a peek into this Renaissance romp, settle in, dim the lights, and perhaps turn on a fan for that soft hum. If you enjoy this journey, do give a like, subscribe, and whisper in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now let's grab a quill and dive into the chaos, carefully, lest we knock over a masterpiece. 'Tis a sunny morning in 1505, and your Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance genius, already knee-deep in chaos in your Florence workshop. Your cluttered space is a marvel, wooden tables strewn with sketches, a half-finished painting of a lady with a mysterious smile, and a wooden model of a flying machine you've been tinkering with for weeks. You're Leonardo, a man of art and invention, and today you're determined to test your latest contraption, a winged machine that'll let man soar like a bird. Salai, fetch my tools, you call, your voice a mix of excitement and impatience, as you adjust the wooden wings with a flourish. Your apprentice, Salai, a cheeky lad with a knack for mischief, rushes in with a tray of tools, his smirk as wide as the Arno River. Here, master, he says, but in his haste, he trips over a pile of sketches, sending the tray flying. Clatter. The flying machine, precariously balanced on the table, tips over with a snap, its wings breaking like a bird that's forgotten how to fly. Your eyes widen in cartoonish panic, brows furrowing as you cry, "My wings! My dreams! Ruined by a clumsy apprentice!" Salai scrambles to his feet, muttering, "Sorry, master, but maybe birds are meant to fly, not men." You glare, but a chuckle escapes. Your day of inventing is off to a soaring start, straight into the ground. Undeterred by the morning's mishap, you've rebuilt your flying machine, sort of, and dragged it to the courtyard for a test flight. "Today, I shall soar like an eagle," you declare, strapping yourself into the contraption, its wooden wings creaking ominously. The machine looks like a giant bat, with linen wings stretched over a wooden frame, and you're perched on a platform like a bird ready to take flight. Your face is a picture of determination, eyes narrowed with focus, as you mutter, "Man will conquer the skies, and I'll be the first." Salai, standing below, smirks cheekily. "Master, are you sure this will work? It looks like a laundry rack with wings." You ignore him, flapping the wings with all your might. Creak, creak. For a moment you lift off the ground half an inch before the whole thing collapses with a crack, sending you tumbling into a haystack with a thud. Cartoon stars circle your head as you emerge, hay in your hair, grumbling, "I flew." For a moment, Salai doubles over, laughing. "You flew straight into the hay, master. That's a new kind of bird." You glare, brushing off the hay. "Laugh all you want, Salai, but I'll conquer the skies yet, even if I have to crawl there first." Your flying dreams may be grounded, but your spirit soars on. Next on your list is a war machine, a wooden tank, a marvel of gears and wheels designed to roll over enemies like a spiked turtle. You've spent weeks sketching this contraption, and now it's ready for a test on a nearby hillside. "Behold, Salai, the future of warfare," you proclaim, patting the tank's wooden shell, its spikes gleaming with menace. Your face glows with pride, eyes sparkling with genius, as you mutter, "This will make me the greatest military mind of the age." But as you give it a push to start the test, the tank starts rolling, downhill straight toward the neighbor's vineyard. "Sacre Madonna," you shout, your eyes popping wide in cartoonish panic, mouth gaping as the tank picks up speed. Crash! It smashes through a row of grapevines, cartoon smoke rising as it finally stops in a ditch, wheels spinning uselessly. Salai chases after it, his tiny legs flailing. "Master, your tank's a grape crusher now." You run down the hill, arms flapping. "My invention, my reputation ruined by a vineyard." The neighbor, a grumpy old farmer, emerges, shaking his fist. "You owe me for those grapes, Da Vinci." You sigh, muttering, "Perhaps I should stick to painting. These inventions are a battlefield of their own." Back in the workshop, you decide to take a break from inventing and return to your art, specifically a painting you've been working on. A lady with a mysterious smile you call Mona Lisa. "Art will soothe my inventive woes," you muse, picking up a brush with a sigh. But as you dip it in paint, Salai bursts in. "Master, I've brought more paints." His tray is a rainbow of colors, but in his excitement, he bumps into you. Splash! A pot of green paint spills right onto the Mona Lisa, splattering her serene face with cartoonish green splotches. "Sacre Madonna," you cry, your eyes bulging in cartoonish horror, mouth gaping as you stare at the mess. Her smile now looks like she's eaten a lime. "My masterpiece, ruined by a clumsy apprentice," you wail, grabbing a cloth to wipe it off, but the paint smears, turning her cheeks a sickly shade of green. Salai snickers. "She looks like she's seasick, master." You glare. "Salai, I'll have you scrubbing floors with that smirk." But as you scrub, you can't help laughing. Perhaps she'll start a new fashion. Green is the color of genius, after all. You set the canvas aside to fix later. Your day of failures is piling up faster than your sketches. Not one to give up, you turn to another invention. A diving suit for exploring underwater. A leather contraption with a helmet and air tubes. "I'll dive into the Arno and uncover its secrets," you declare, strapping on the suit with a determined look, your eyes narrowed with focus. The suit looks like a cross between a fish and a knight's armor, and you waddle to the riverbank, Salai trailing behind with a cheeky smirk. "Master, are you sure this will work? You look like a soggy turtle," he teases. You ignore him, stepping into the water. Splash! But the suit springs a leak, cartoon bubbles rising as water floods in. Drip, drip. "Sacre Madonna, I'm sinking!" you shout, your eyes popping wide in cartoonish panic, arms flailing as you waddle back to shore, water pouring out with a splosh. Salai doubles over, laughing. "Master, you're more fisherman than fish." You emerge, soaked and grumpy, muttering, "I'll stick to sketching the river next time. Diving is for the ducks." You peel off the suit, shaking your head. Another invention bites the dust, or rather, the water. Back in the workshop, you turn to a smaller project. A mechanical clock to keep perfect time, a marvel of gears and springs. "Time is the canvas of genius," you proclaim, tinkering with the clock's innards, your face glowing with focus, eyes sparkling with ideas. But as you wind it up, the gears start to whir, too fast. "Sacra Madonna, it's going haywire," you shout, your eyes popping wide in cartoonish panic, mouth gaping as the clock explodes with a boing, cartoon springs flying everywhere. Bing! Bing! One spring hits Salai in the nose. Ow! And he ducks under the table, his smirk replaced by cartoon fear. "Master, your clock's trying to kill us." You dodge a gear, muttering, "I wanted to master time, not be mastered by it." The clock's hands spin wildly before stopping, cartoon smoke rising with a puff. You sigh, wiping soot from your face. Perhaps I'll stick to sundials. They don't fight back. Salai peeks out, giggling. At least you kept time for about 3 seconds. You can't help laughing. Your inventions may fail, but your sense of humor keeps ticking. Just when you think the day can't get worse, a noble patron arrives. Lorenzo de' Medici, a wealthy supporter eager to see your latest inventions. "Show me your genius, Leonardo," he demands, his red velvet robe gleaming, his face stern with expectation. You gulp, your eyes widening in cartoonish nervousness. "Of course, my lord." You decide to demonstrate a smaller invention, a mechanical lion meant to roar and walk, a gift for the Medici court. You wind up the lion, its wooden body creaking. Behold, a marvel of engineering. But as it starts to move, clank, clank, it lurches forward, then breaks apart with a crack, cartoon smoke rising as its head rolls off and lands at Lorenzo's feet. "Sacre Madonna," you cry, your eyes popping wide, mouth gaping in panic. Lorenzo frowns. "This is your genius? A lion that loses its head?" You stammer. It's a metaphor, my lord. Courage in defeat." Salai snickers from the corner, and you shoot him a glare. Lorenzo sighs. "Stick to painting, Leonardo. Your machines are a menace." He leaves, and you mutter, "Perhaps he's right, but I'll conquer invention yet." Your patron may be unimpressed, but your determination roars on. As the sun sets, casting a golden glow over your workshop, you take a break from inventing to sketch. A bird in flight, a reminder of your failed flying machine. "Perhaps I'll stick to drawing the skies," you muse, your face softening into a slight smirk, eyes gleaming with quiet reflection. The day's been a parade of disasters. The flying machine crash, the tank tumble, the Mona Lisa mess, the diving suit leak, the clock explosion, and the lion's beheading, but you can't help laughing at the absurdity of it all. Salai sweeps the floor nearby, his cartoonish effort sending dust clouds rising. Poof. "Master, your inventions may fail, but they make for good stories," he teases, his smirk wide as ever. You chuckle. "True, Salai. Perhaps my failures will inspire someone else to fly." You reflect on your genius, not just in art, but in dreaming big, even when your dreams crash spectacularly. Your workshop may be a mess, but your mind is a canvas of endless possibilities, and that's a masterpiece in itself. Night falls, and you prepare for rest, the day's chaos finally behind you. You shed your brown tunic, the soft cap you've worn all day, landing on a pile of sketches, and slip into a simple nightshirt. Geniuses need sleep too. Salai, ever the cheeky apprentice, tucks you into your wooden bed with exaggerated care. Fluffing your pillow, like a mother hen, cartoon hearts pop around him. "Good night, master. May your dreams be free of crashing machines," he teases, his smirk as wide as ever. You roll your eyes. "Sally, if I dream of inventions, I'll have you building them." But a sleepy smirk spreads. ZZs float above your head. Your workshop is quiet, save for the distant chirp of crickets and the rustle of papers in the breeze. You reflect on the day's failures, the flying machine, the tank, the Mona Lisa, the diving suit, the clock, the lion, but also on your endless curiosity. Each failure is a brushstroke on the canvas of your genius, and tomorrow you'll paint anew. As you drift off, the day fades into dreams of flight, machines, and a Mona Lisa who doesn't mind a little green. Another day as Leonardo da Vinci is done, and you've survived, inventions and all. And so, a day in the life of Leonardo da Vinci comes to a close, leaving behind a legacy of art, invention, and a few hilarious mishaps in the heart of Renaissance Florence. If you're still awake, I hope you've enjoyed these creative antics. If you're drifting off, let the quill's gentle scratch carry you to dreamland. Thanks for joining me on this inventive journey. Like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or what historical tale you'd like to hear next. Until then, sleep well, and may your dreams be as boundless as Leonardo's imagination, minus the crashing machines.